All right. Fantasy football week 2. D Nasty is back. Dave, I'm watching the Bears. I'm a little bit excited. Don't get me wrong, but hey, the defense is what's winning the game.
Oh yeah, Caleb's actually looked pretty good tonight compared to JJ, but yeah, definitely excited. Football is back. A lot of great games this past weekend. Buffalo Bills, an awesome game to watch. That was one of the best games I think this weekend. Actually, the Pittsburgh Steelers Jets game with Rodgers, that was actually a great game to watch too. A lot of good football this past weekend. Got to go to the Packer game as well. Got to see the Packers, Micah Parsons effect. Definitely was a real thing too. So that was really nice to see up at Lambeau as well.
Dude, I bet, man. The Lions looked like a shell of themselves with no offensive line. And we know that they lost 2 or 3 key guys. I think 3 key guys. One retired even late in the spring,
Yeah.
which made it like really tough on them. But it's like maybe the Bears are the new Lions. That's what I'm kind of hoping for. So
we'll see about that. We'll see.
I know it's early, but hey, we're both happy so far. I mean, we didn't lose yet, so we're up 17-6. But we need to kind of get it going. But hey, it's fantasy football, so that's what we're here to talk about, not stupid rivalries. Key injuries, Dave. I got a few of them, and then you can kind of sprinkle in, see where I'm wrong or right or what I missed. Wide receiver Xavier Worthy, clearly from the game on Friday, dislocated his shoulder, but he's kind of day to day. There's a chance he can actually play from what I'm reading. Drake London had a shoulder sprain for the Atlanta, so we got to watch him. You might know more about that. Evan Ingram left the fourth quarter with a calf injury. Tight end Brock Bowers, that worried people a lot with the knee injuries, but he's not concerned. I think he could have went back in if needed. George Kittle's a little bit more concerning with that hammy. It sounds like a bad one, and he's going to miss some time, a few weeks at least on that. And wide receiver Juwan Jennings for the Niners as well, left with a shoulder injury. But as far as fantasy, Dave, those are some of the main ones. What did I miss?
No, those are all the ones I had too as well. But another main one is Brock Purdy's probably going to be out this week. Mac Jones is the guy we're to talk about here shortly. But Brock Purdy is said to not play this week because of the shoulder and toe issue. More the toe, they said, than the shoulder, though. So keep an eye on that. But they said he's probably not going to play. He's probably doubtful for this week.
Wow, I see it. They could miss. I never thought it was that serious. I thought it was more.
Yeah, they're saying he's going to be held out of practice all week, and they're saying he's probably unlikely to play, is what I'm reading today. So
return of the Mac.
Yeah, return of the Mac, baby. So you got most of the major ones here. Like you said, the Ingram one was major, and then Puka he was elevated for a concussion, but he's probably going to play this week. Just keep an eye on that one as well. And then Kittle, that's the big one. Chris Godwin, actually, this is an injury update. He actually started practicing this week, so some good news on the injury front for him. So he could return to practice this week, and he could probably play within the next couple weeks. So if you drafted him and you were sad about him playing and missing this past week, good news on the injury front is that he'll be back at practice this week.
Well, that's crazy. I did miss that, Brock Purdy. So thank you for telling me that. Been busy since about noon, but hey, let's get into the waiver wire. Dave, why don't you get in and tell us how we're going to fill some of those holes?
Well, the guy that I really liked, I was talking about this week to you and a few other people, the sports betting queen. I told her I didn't like her pick this week against the Colts. I like Daniel Jones. Danny Dimes came to play this past week. 22 for 29, 276 yards passing and 1 touchdown. And then he added 26 yards rushing and an additional 2 touchdowns on the ground. So if you do not have him, definitely add him. Mac Jones, like we talked about, just speculative add in case Purdy does not play. You want to handcuff him. Or if you need a quarterback this week in those 2 quarterback leagues, some of you guys need Bain or the super flex. Definitely add him for that potential start this week. But the matchup, though, this week is not good for Daniel Jones. That's the only bad thing. We can get that we'll talk about that in a minute here. He does play against the Denver Broncos this week. Michael Penix, if he's still out there in the waiver wire by chance, probably not. But if he is, he had a good game this past week. So definitely add him. A guy that probably is drafted as well is Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, 4 TDs, 4 tutties this past week. They looked pretty good, actually. It was against the Jets, though, whose defense is not as good as it used to be years ago, but definitely looked good as well this week. Now I'll get into some guys that definitely will be on the waiver wire for you here. Dylan Sampson from the Browns. He had 12 carries, 27 yards rushing, with an additional 8 receptions for 64 receiving yards. So those PPR leagues, he's going to be huge. Jerome Ford did not really do anything at all. So
but
definitely,
is Judkins coming back going to take him over? I wonder, but he's still worth owning, I think, right?
Yeah, well, Junkins he hasn't practiced all preseason, and he doesn't know he's going to be up to speed for a while. So it's going to be 2 to 3 weeks before Junkins is even up to speed. So I really like Sampson actually, and I think for the next couple weeks he's still going to be the guy there. And even when Junkins comes in, they might split carries because he looks like he's taking over that backfield. Trey Benson and Braylon Allen, they both got carries this past week as well, and Braylon Allen had a touchdown. He didn't have many yards. He only had 9 yards on 8 carries, but he did have a touchdown, so they were using him in the red zone, which was nice. And then Trey Benson actually had a pretty nice game as well. He outrushed James Conner, taking 8 carries for 68 yards. So he had a couple big runs in there, but definitely keep an eye on those two. But they have some tough matchups as well. Actually, Trey Benson has a nice matchup up against the Panthers, but Braylon Allen actually plays the Bills, but they gave up quite a few points to the Ravens this past week. So definitely add there. Quinn Johnson. Some people may have drafted him, but if he has on the waiver wire, he's a guy you want to definitely add. Him and Keenan Allen both had nice games in Brazil for the Chargers, so definitely add them. Romeo Dobbs, he's out there in a couple leagues as well, so definitely add him. He didn't have that great of a week this week, but I think a good matchup against the Commanders this week, so we'll talk about that here shortly. And then the 2 tight ends I like this week for matchups were Hunter Henry and Zach Ertz. Those guys would be nice speculative ads as well.
All right. I got some of those. And we have a few questions, and we'll get into those after I run through these. Yeah, Hollywood Brown is available in a lot of leagues. Now, Worthy was out, but still 16 targets. If you can get 6, 7, 8 targets a game in a TD or so, he could be worth a store. Jake Tongas for the Kittle injury, Tongas, and he's going to fill in big because the Niners don't have a lot of guys to throw to right now. So I would put him in, and that Mac Jones probably worked with him as well, who's big on the waivers. And, the second string throws the second string a lot in practice. Michael Mayer, if Bowers misses time, I would almost handcuff Bowers with Michael Mayer if he could. I mean, it's such a key position now in the Raiders, right? Tight end Lucas Krull, even if Ingram misses time. Juwan Johnson for the Saints was big with 11 targets, right? He was massive.
He was, yeah.
Keenan Allen was big. 10 targets and a touchdown for the Cardinals. Keyshawn Boutte had 8 targets and 103 yards for the Patriots. Boutte,
yeah, that's a nice pickup too, actually.
Yeah, he's owned in a decent, but not a lot. So we kind of try to cut it at 50-60% when Dave and I do this. And Quentin Johnson, 2 touchdowns and 7 targets for the Chargers. He's kind of like the touchdown receiver there. He's like the Evans for the Tampa Bay Bucks. And Geno Smith's on there. He's going to be good this year. Mac Jones for the Purdy, like you said, and Noah Fant. Let's go to the first question here. Weston Kendall, is Trey McBride for Tucker Kraft and DK, I'm guessing Metcalf, worth it? No, unless you're really starving for a receiver, dude. DK Metcalf is going to be good and bad. It's the Steelers. They like to run the clock. They like to run the ball. They throw to Warren a lot. Trey McBride is such a dang good tight end. It's just really hard to fill that position. Dave?
Actually, if he does need a receiver, I do like the trade. If you do need a receiver, if your receivers are pretty weak, then I might do that trade. Actually, I do like the Kraft and DK, but like Kiev was saying, Kiev made good points. I would not do it if you're pretty deep at receiver already. If this is just a depth piece, if you're not going to start him, then I would not do it. No, yeah, I definitely agree with Kiev on that. But if you need a starting wide receiver, yes, I definitely do it then.
Because your team actually gets. Yeah, and of course you're asking a Packer fan here, but if your team doesn't need a receiver, you're taking a hit because McBride is one of the second best tight end, maybe first even best tight end.
Top 3 for sure, yeah.
Easy. All right, and Mark Grefford says, should I trade Garrett Wilson and Ricky Pearsall for Achin and Trey Benson? 12-team PPR. I am worried about the Dolphins, man. This could be, Achin still has to get his. These guys still have to work, but the problem with with Pearsall is when later when Ayuk comes back midseason, Pearsall is going to take a second hit stand. So I mean, that's not a terrible trade, but Trey Benson, he's still a second guy. I mean, it's two receivers for two running backs. If you need running backs and you're loaded with receivers, yes, I guess, right?
Yeah, and I agree. I don't like Trey Benson. I think this week was kind of an outlier. I don't see him doing that week to week. He had a couple big runs in there, so that's why he had the 68 yards. So I still think, like you said, Benson's definitely still the back of there. James Conner is going to be the bell cow still there. So you're essentially just trading two wide receivers for Rashawn. And the Dolphins do worry me, even though they are a running team. I think Garrett Wilson's actually going to have a good year. I got it late in a lot of leagues, and I really like him. So unless you do really need running backs bad, I wouldn't do the trade. But if you need running back depth, then I would do it. But other than that, though, no, I would probably not do it if you don't need running backs that bad, because I like Garrett Wilson this year.
Yeah, I do too. And even with Fields looked pretty good last week. Ricky Pearsall and Caleb Johnson for ETN and Jordan Mason. I would absolutely grab ETN. I think he's the main guy in Jacksonville. Jacksonville looked pretty good. Caleb Johnson might not even make it past the second string. He had a bad camp, and I thought Caleb Johnson, I drafted him in my first round of my dynasty league. It's just not looking good for him. It could change, but it's all speculative. And then, like I said about Ricky Pearsall, he's going to lose time when Ayuk comes back and Juwan Jennings is there. I like Pearsall, but he's not like a number 1 or 2 guy. He's a slot guy. So, that's what
Pearsall can still be. I think he's still be a number 2 there possibly, because Juwan Jennings might take a backseat to him somewhat, but I think they still could feed all 3 receivers when they come back. But I definitely think he does take a downgrade there. But yeah, I definitely ETN is definitely the guy in this deal that I want. They just traded Tank Bigsby today to the Eagles. I don't know if you saw that or not.
Yeah, I did.
That's huge
even
news.
Better for ETN. Better for ETN even. I did see that.
His carries are going to go up now. They really like the Tuden guy, the rookie, but that ETN, that's just increased his stock tenfold right now. So if you can get him right now, I would do that trade in a heartbeat. Do it now before they even see that Bigsby was traded, because I still don't get this trade for the Eagles. They have a ton of running backs there with Shipley, AJ Dillon, Barkley. I'm like, I don't know why they made this trade. They said for kickoff purposes, but it doesn't make sense to me.
Dang, DeAndre Swift, another just driving. Holy cow. All right, well, that's enough on trades. Let's move to non-starters trending up for week 2. Travion Henderson against Miami could be big. That's what I'm going with. And RJ Harvey against the Titans, I think it has a shot. I know Titans run D was decent last year, but that's because like they're losing so bad. They knew teams were going to run the clock out. So I don't even know if that stat's real. Running back Trey Benson against the Panthers looks pretty tasty this week too. I think Benson's a good streamer this week. Cam Skattebo against the Cowboys. The Cowboys' run defense looked pretty pathetic last week against Saquon Barkley. I think Cam Skattebo is now going to start taking over for the Giants. I just have a feeling. Wide receiver T. Higgins against the Jaguars is interesting too, because the Jaguars are bad at guarding the pass. I think that's going to be a high-flying game, a great fantasy game. Jags against them. What else we got? We got Michael Mayer against the Chargers. Could be big. We'll see how bad the other band's banged up, but he did get some catches anyway, even with Bowers in. Jonnu Smith against the Seahawks, I think, looks good too. I like Jonnu Smith this week against the Seahawks for the Steelers. Dave?
Oh yeah, I like Trey Tucker actually against the Chargers. He's actually one of the receivers I really like there. He's kind of a deep sleeper there for the Raiders. I'm sorry, and then I do like Metcalf against the Texans. He had a nice week this past week. I know he's owned in a lot of leagues already, but I like him as a sleeper this week against the Texans. He had 2 TDs this past week. I do agree with you on the tight end against the Seahawks. I like that. I do like Flacco this week. I think they're going to be behind against a good Ravens team, so Flacco's going to need to throw the ball. So he could put up some nice fantasy points for you this week. So I do like that. I agree with the Skattebo too. I like him against the Cowboys or Tyrone Tracy for those who aren't starting him already. I definitely like that matchup. I do like Trevon Henderson as well too against the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins are a mess right now. And then actually I do like the backup too for like Isaac Guerrero for the 49ers. With McCaffrey being banged up, I think he could get some more carries this week. Or Brian Robinson, whoever they go with this week. I think one of those two would be a nice sleeper this week too against the poor Saints D. And then the Saints are struggling this year as well. So I do like that matchup. Jets gave up quite a few points last week too. So I can see Ray Davis maybe getting a tutty and some nice yards this week against that poor Jets run D too as well.
For sure. I agree with that stuff. Now get into bust, Dave. Who do you have for bust?
Well, I'm going to go back to the well here. The Saints, they're just horrible. Their offense is not good. I don't like anyone on the Saints right now. Kamara had a pretty decent week on a bad team, but I'm definitely going to downgrade him this week against the 49ers. They are pretty good up front still, so I'm downgrading the Saints run game. I don't like them this week. I don't like the Browns this week, any of the Browns players against the Ravens. So even Sampson, who I like, and Flacco. I think Flacco just puts up some garbage yards later, but overall, I'm not putting any Browns in my lineup this week other than Flacco just because they're going to have to come from behind. So that's the only one I like there. Jared Goff kind of struggled this past week against the Packers. I know we had Micah Parsons, but Bears see how they're looking tonight. I'm downgrading Jared Goff too. He was a top fantasy quarterback last year. I think he can struggle a little bit this week.
That's early, buddy. I don't know if you're overreacting, but that is.
I know, but
I mean, here's the thing: if I wouldn't start him over like what's his face, Herbert. I wouldn't start him over Herbert, but I would start him. You know, I don't know. I will agree. He took a hit.
Yeah, but he just didn't look good. Like you said, their line looked a little poor this past week as well. So I'm just downgrading him as well. I'm not as high on him this week as well. I'm still going to start him in some leagues if he's one of my better quarterbacks. But I'm just saying I'm downgrading him this week as well. He's just the guy that's on the trending down right now for me. So another guy I don't like, and then I don't really like the Darnold against the tough Steelers D either. I don't see him doing that well against the tough Steelers D. The Steelers D is pretty dominant this year. And same with Daniel Jones. I don't like his matchup against the Broncos this week either. Broncos have a good D2 as well. So those are some guys I'm downgrading as well.
Agreed. And Darnold's at home, I think. Or, I mean, on the road, I mean. Yeah, I mean, I don't even like Bucky Irving against the Texans that much. I mean, you probably have to start him, but I mean, if you're like in a 10-team league and you're loaded, Dylan Sampson against the Ravens is bad. I mean, I like Dylan Sampson, but it's a tough matchup, kind of like what you said with Danny Dimes, right? So that's another problem. Jerry Jeudy you can throw in there as well. I don't like Jerry Jeudy against the pissed off Ravens. I don't want to play the Ravens this week.
No way.
What a game last night was. Tony Pollard against the Broncos, awful, right? Yeah, Cam Ward and Tony Pollard, just throw them in the trash this week. Throw the whole Alvin Kamara and Chris Olave and the Saints in the trash. If you're starting the quarterback there, clearly you shouldn't even be playing fantasy football. Wide receiver Calvin Ridley against the Broncos, bad, just like I said. Sam Darnold against the Steelers D. I agree with that one, Dave. I even throw Michael Penix against this Vikings D on the road because they're going to Vikings be at home, be a little bit more hungry and pissed off. I'm worried about Penix if you have to start him. Chuba Hubbard against Tampa. Tampa's usually good against the run, so I'm worried about Chuba Hubbard a little bit. Running back Austin Eckler against Green Bay. I'll give you your props, Dave. I think Austin Eckler could have a bad game, and Green Bay's got a brand new pass rusher there. It looked pretty nasty yesterday, so that was a great trade for the Packers so far. Oh, geez, the Bears missed the field goal. Come on. Anyways, we're still up by 11. That brings us to our nasty sleep, or who wants to go first?
Go ahead.
I'm going. You already mentioned him, Brian Robinson against the Saints. I think McCaffrey gets a little more rest this week. I know it's return of the Mac, but return of the Mac's going to be handing the ball off a lot, and that's how they're going to, push the run. You saw last week. There's a lot of handoffs, and the Niners are a better running team than the Cardinals in general. I think Brian Robinson will at least get the cleanup yards. And I think he was involved in the offense more than I thought he would be, Dave. So he's a nasty sleeper for sure.
I'm going Romeo Doubs actually for the Packers. Actually, he had a solid game this past week, but Jordan Love likes going to him in the red zone, so I definitely could see him getting another touchdown this week and at least 60 to 70 yards on the lower end. So I'm going with Romeo Doubs. Actually, I know it's the Green Bay pick, but I like him actually this week. I think second week, I think Jordan Love is starting to play a little bit better. I like Romeo Doubs as my D-Nasty sleeper this week, but I do like Mac Jones, the guy I was looking at as well, though, too, if he does play. So he has a great matchup as well.
Sure, why not? Dobbs, bring him on in, man. It's going to be a fun week. And, remember those DFSs. There's some good streamers out there. There's could be like a Juwan Johnson, Michael Mayer, there's Dylan Sampson, maybe. There's going to be some streamers this week for some of those injuries. Mac Jones is a streamer for sure against the Saints D. So remember that. I think we covered it, Dave. So, if you guys have any other questions, tweet us at the Oddsbreakers. Email us info@theoddsbreakers.com. We'll see you on Wednesday and Thursday for some college football and some NFL. Enjoy the rest of your week and go get some winners.